Hello chess friends and welcome to your out of chess channel and welcome to a spectacular game from the champion chess tour grand final between Alireza FIrouzja and Magnus Carlsen. This match was very epic. First of all, Alireza FIrouzja qualified through the losers bracket and reached the super final against Magnus Carlsen, and then he won the first finals against Magnus Carlsen, and then he had the opportunity to play against Magnus Carlsen again in a new grand final. The concept of the grand final was like this. First of all, they had to play two games. The first two games ended with a draw, which meant that they have to play the so-called Armageddon game. And in the last game of this epic chess event, Alireza FIrouzja had 10 minutes on the clock with the white pieces. Magnus Carlsen had only 8 points on the clock without the increment they played, but Alireza FIrouzja had to win this game in order to win this tournament. If this game ends with a draw, then of course Magnus Carlsen is the winner of this amazing and spectacular tournament that we have followed now on chess.com. So let's see now what happened. The game finished a couple of minutes ago with the white pieces. Alireza FIrouzja opened with the move e4. Magnus' response was e5. We have bishop to c4, the so-called bishop's opening. We have knight to f6, the burden defense, d3, fixing now the structure in the center of the board. And now after move c6, Magnus prepares, of course, the central breakthrough with the move d5 is, of course, not tolerating this very unpleasant bishop here on this diagonal. Alireza plays normal development. Knight to f3. We have d5, bishop drops back, and now what should you do? You should actually not take here because white doesn't have to even react here in the center. We'll simply play knight to g5. You have to cover, takes. We take out this one. Even if you trade knight to e4, d takes e4, after a couple of trades of queens, I think this pawn structure is of course a long-term weakness. White, I think, has a comfortable game. I'm not saying this is completely winning here for white or something, but I think in top GM level this should be a winning position here for Alireza. So that's why for bishop to b3, Magnus plays normal development. Now knight to d2, Alireza protects finally the pawn on e4, castling, and now rook to e8, rook to e1, of course keeping here always the protection of the e4 pawn. Knight from b to d7, Magnus is trying not to attack the pawn, but also here the bishop in b3, so that's why c3 played by Alireza, very important move, creating a breathing space for the bishop. Now comes this idea, of course Alireza drops back and has now a great grip around the square e4. After d takes e4, we have d takes e4 also by Alireza, bishop to c7 by Magnus, and now queen to e2. And I think this is a pretty equal position. Believe me or not, the engine likes even here slightly better black's position, but I think this is pretty equal because white has of course the opportunity to play knight to f1, knight to g3, maybe even jump with the knight on f5, but I think also black has here beautiful bishop's activity, can also play different ideas, can play b5, b4 and similar stuff. So both players I think have here good chances to win the game. So here Magnus plays first of all a theoretical novelty, a move that we haven't seen so far in chess history. In chess history, knight to h5 has been played, and also a5 as the continuation, which of course keeps I think here the knight on c5 a little bit more comfortable because it's of course preventing some ideas like b4. So that's why after queen to e2, really interesting move by Magnus, queen to e7, but I think also quite a natural idea here by Magnus because the only open file is the d file, so you don't want to be in danger maybe by some rook activities on the e file. So that's why queen to e7, again a pretty solid move, again I think an equal position for both sides. Now Alireza goes with an attack, b4, knight to e6, and here Magnus is preparing to jump with the knight on f4, but now Alireza plays knight to c4, and now the real fun starts. So here Magnus has I think two good options. He can play knight to d7, which is slightly passive, but at least you're protecting your pawn on e5, or you can play more aggressively with the move a5. These are I think two options here for black. After something like b takes a5, bishop to a5, knight to a5, rook to a5, connects again the rook to the pawn on e5, should be pretty solid. Of course an awkward position for the rook to stay here on the a5, but we have to also notice after this potential trades of pawns and pieces, white is simply capped with two isolated pawns. White has of course the beautiful bishop pair, still I would say this is an equal position, but this was one option here for Magnus. So as we said, a5, or you can play of course also as we mentioned knight to d7, but Magnus played a very dubious move I would say. He played now the move knight to f4, and knight to f4 allows here Alireza to take. After f takes e takes f4, Alireza has now an attack against the knight. You see, Alireza has now this powerful pawn that's marching in the center of the board, and the cool part is that the pawn is protecting by the queen, by both of these knights, by this rook, and now also the light square bishop is now liberated. In the previous line, we saw that the light square bishop was not a good piece. Actually, it's a little bit always stuck here on this c2 square. It's always paralyzed by its own pawn. But with this maneuver here, Alireza allowed, pardon me, Magnus Carlsen allowed here Alireza FIrouzja to get this bishop into the game, and from this point on, I think this becomes now a good game here for Alireza FIrouzja. What should Magnus do? If you, for instance, try here knight to g4, it doesn't matter. We'll simply play h3. You don't have too much pressure around the square e5. You have to step back, and again, white is continuing the game with this very, very powerful pawn on e5. What you should do, for instance, the Stockfish engine suggests that you should play here bishop to g4 after something like h3, bishop to f3, queen to f3. At least you got rid of one defender of this pawn on e5. At least you gained something. Now you can play knight to d5, and I think this should be again okay, slightly better position for white, but at least black is holding the position for a while. But after move e5, what Magnus played now was now the move knight to d5, and now Alireza FIrouzja had a beautiful opportunity to maybe even destroy Magnus Carlsen immediately. Maybe if you like, pause the video and try to see now the idea that Alireza FIrouzja didn't find in this game. Very, very cool idea, I would say. Very, very tricky move. Unfortunately, for the beauty of the game, Alireza missed it. You look at this, the knight is coming on d5. Many of us would play that. It comes, of course, also with the threat to play knight to c3, but there is now a very, very cool idea that white can play. Okay. Here, Alireza had the opportunity to play an amazing knight to d6. Look what happens. For instance, if you try, of course, knight to c3, this is not working because of queen to d3, and then we can always take, for instance, you're trying something like this. You have to step back with the piece, queen to h7 here, and then queen to h8 is, of course, a checkmate. If you play here after knight to d6, bishop takes d6, again, you play queen to d3, and black is pretty much lost, I would say. You'd have to try something like bishop to f5, bishop to f5, g6, we step back. You have to step back with the bishop, and now after bishop to b3, I think again a beautiful game here for white. Will simply continue the pressure. We can play then afterwards a3, c4. This pawn is still very unpleasant to handle, so a messed up game again here for black. But instead of this move knight to d6, Alireza played h3, allowed here Magnus Carlsen to get back into the game. Magnus plays now the move g6. He notices, of course, the problems of this diagonal. Alireza continues now with queen to d2, and now Magnus plays bishop to e6. What should black do again? Here, a better choice for Alireza FIrouzja was simply to play rook to d8. For Magnus Carlsen, pardon. After rook to d8, you don't have this hop of the knight on d6. So after move bishop to e6, now Alireza noticed the possibility of knight to d6 again, and again, Magnus is facing many, many tactical problems. What should you do? For instance, if you try bishop to d6, then after e takes d6, queen to d6, you get this one, c4. The queen is lined up here on the d file. You have to maybe even give up decisive material. Will simply take out the knight. Okay, you gained a couple of pawns, but white is continuing the game with an extra piece. So I think again, game over here for black. So after knight to d6, that's why Magnus played rook from e to d8, but now c4. Great move here by Alireza. Now this pawn is marching, this queen is protecting the b4 square. Magnus has to now step back, and now comes c5. And look at this powerful knight on d6. It's this octopus knight. It's such a powerful piece. I'm not sure how Magnus allowed this this position to come, because this is obviously a completely winning game, I think, for white. Completely busted black here, especially because of the space advantage, because of this powerful knight. Even if you trade it off, then one pawn will take it out, and then we have the supported pass pawn, very unpleasant pass pawn to handle then on the 6th rank. So no bishop to d6 is also working here. So from this point on, I think the game is a one-way ticket, of course, in white's favor. So we have knight to d5, we have bishop to e4, b6. Here Alireza continues with knight to d4, continues the pressure against the bishop, bishop to d7, and now bishop to d5. Very important move, I would say, also by Alireza. Now there's new weakness in black's position here, the isolated d pawn. We have now queen to f4. Alireza grabs another pawn, b takes c5. We have b takes c5, rook from a to b8, and now of course Alireza competes also on the b file. After a couple of trades of rooks, we have reached now this position after bishop to b8. Here I would say much better position here for Alireza. c6 is working. The queen, the pieces don't have any squares here. As I said, even if you take out somehow this unpleasant knight on d6, then after e takes d6, c6, d7, c7 is working. So very game over, I would say, here for Magnus Carlsen. So after move bishop to b8, here Alireza continued with knight to f3, simply rerouted the knight on a better square. We have bishop to c7, queen to b4, bishop to c6, and now after knight to c8, Magnus Carlsen has to now step back with the queen. Queen drops back to d7, and now Alireza grabs another pawn. We have now a completely destroyed position for Magnus. We have bishop to a4. Alireza pins now the bishop here. The bishop cannot move. Everything is paralyzed in Magnus Carlsen's position. d4. We have c6. The pawn is marching. Queen to d8. Queen to b4. We have bishop to c2. Magnus is trying maybe something with this passer, but it's not working. Alireza simply drops back. We have now bishop to e4. As we said, even if you try here d3, then there is a cool idea that white can always play, for instance, e6. It's just important to somehow open up the position in front of the king. After something like f takes e6, we take, then we play something like this, and this pawn is unstoppable. It's very important also to keep the queen from the d file, because the queen is always supporting the potential promotion of the pawn on the d file. So in this scenario, again, Alireza would be completely winning here. After knight to b5 by Alireza, Magnus continued with bishop to e4, knight takes c7, queen to c7, knight to d4. Magnus grabs now this pawn, but now Alireza simply supports the pawn and has now this passer that cannot be stopped anymore by Magnus Carlsen. Magnus is trying queen to g5, f3 by Alireza, queen to e3 by Magnus, and now after king to h1 in this particular position, Magnus Carlsen resigned. So what's the issue? You can always deliver one more check, but never really perpetuals, and no good checks are possible afterwards. This pawn is rolling, as I said, and it would be game over here from Magnus. So with this win, Alireza FIrouzja won this tournament against Magnus Carlsen with a great performance. Now he won the last Armageddon game. We have to also mention today already Magnus Carlsen and Alireza played already 4 games in which they played a draw. Then they had to play again an Armageddon game in which Alireza even won the game with the black pieces against Magnus Carlsen. So it was simply Alireza's day. He's, I think, the deserved winner of this tournament. He destroyed here Magnus Carlsen in this grand final. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really crazy stuff in this bishop's opening. Magnus didn't react correctly here in the middle game stage. If you want to see some other beautiful chess games like this here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our commented chess games and also our commented chess games played by computers, where we analyze even stronger and even more powerful games in the AI chess world. And if you like this content, subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.